Hello and welcome to Unacademy, the one-stop solution for English medium civil services aspirants. Today we start a very important journey related to history, which is our past. This basic series is going to discuss any aspect related to history in the news. What we'll be covering is current affairs of art and culture, ancient, medieval, modern and world history. And we'll try to make sure that we can constructively contribute in your UPSC CSE journey, specifically in English. Today's topic is quite interesting and holy, which is the Ayodhya Ram Temple and its architectural analysis. We'll be concentrating on the architecture aspect of it. What are the basic contours? What are the different nuances of this architecture? And we'll also try to understand how is it relevant for the examination generally. But before we begin, there's a very important question you should ask me, which is that who am I and what gives me the authority to teach you history? For that, I have an answer, which is my name is Abhishek Mishra and I've been doing history for close to 10 years now, maybe a decade or more. And my journey with regards to history started with my BA Honours. I did my BA Honours in history from Sri Venkateshwara College. Thereafter, I went to St. Stephen's College for my Masters. Then I did my MPhil from Department of History, Delhi University under a stalwart, Professor Amar Farooqui, who basically taught me administrative history, and I'm a specialist of the colonial western sector, specifically Bombay and Goa. In the process of that, I had to learn Portuguese because in order to analyze Goan sources, you need to know Portuguese. Thereafter, I'm doing my PhD right now, and in this process, I developed a specialization in Indian, Chinese, Japanese, American and Russian history, and specifically modern Indian history, which I'm a specialist of, and I'm a labor, economic and administratively trained historian. The cherry on the cake with regards to all of this is that I'm also the gold medalist, the rank 1, the university topper of my graduation, post-graduation and my MPhil coursework. And throughout my academic journey, I've excelled in this subject and made sure that I've developed a certain nuance and understanding which I can transfer to you. Once I completed my MPhil, I gave the UGC NET examination, which is for assistant professors. I gave that, I cleared that, I've cleared that 3 times with JRF. And then I started to teach as an assistant professor in Delhi University for 5 years. I taught in different colleges, Hindu College, SGTB Khalsa. I taught in Kamla Nehru. I taught in Satyavati, College of Vocational Studies. You may be a student of mine previously. And thereafter, because of this basic affinity towards UPSC which I had, I came into this industry to make sure that you complete and achieve your dream, which is to become an IAS officer. I've also written a book with Pearson Publications, which is UGC NET History Paper 2. Though this book is for a UGC NET aspirant, it is quite relevant for UPSC also because it has been designed in that way. I've also represented India throughout in different conferences, specifically the Harvard University Conference in Senegal, where I represented India and I presented the Policing Bombay paper, where I talked about the administrative structures of Bombay. And I also appeared in the All India Radio Dateline Delhi, where we were talking about the Jallianwala Bagh anniversary, the 100th anniversary session, in which we talked about the whole concept of Jallianwala Bagh. I've been a fellow with ICHR and UGC throughout, getting different scholarships, and I'm in the process of writing a art and culture book for UPSC as an alternative to the books which are already available. So it would be safe to say that I know what I'm doing, and more than that, I have been doing this for more than a decade. So I have the expertise to transfer it to you and make sure that history becomes very easy for you in the UPSC paper. Now that you know who I am, we can begin our session. Now, when you talk about Ayodhya Ram Temple, you would have heard about this word, Nagara Style, Nagara Style, Nagara Style. However, in order to understand what is Nagara Style, let's go into the basics. That is going to be the basic modus operandi, how we are going to operate. I'll give you the basics, then I will go into the advanced level, and then we'll do the case studies. Now, the basic here would be temples, temple and temple architecture, a very fundamental subject of art and culture, a very enjoyable one also because it's quite interesting. Now, let's basically understand what are the basic elements of a temple. Then we'll go into Nagara. Then we'll go into the architectural analysis of Ayodhya. Now, when we talk about a temple, you would have seen this basic diagram quite a lot in different books. And though it is a 2D diagram, it is quite accurate in letting you know what are the basic elements of a temple generally. So you have the Garbhagriha, thereafter the Shikara, then called the Amlaka, topping it up with the Kalash. Thereafter, this is called Mandapa, this is called Ardhamandap, and though this is does not have a term when it comes to basic temples, this is a raised platform through which through stairs you enter into a temple. So every temple would have a Garbhagriha for sure, a Shikhar, an Amlak, a Kalash, a Mandap, Ardhamandap. Ardhamandap basically is the entry point into the Mandap. Mandap is the congregation hall, and thereafter you go into the Garbhagriha where the main deity is. Now, this is a very straightforward thing. This you should know already. However, I'm giving you the basic terminologies which make sense to you in the long run, which is Garbhagriha, Shikhar, Amlaka, Kalash, Mandapa, Ardhamandap, and the raised platform. You know that there is a 5-stage development. In the first stage, there was only a square, what we call as Garbhagriha, a very shallow mandap, no platform, no shikhar. Then second stage, we see that a raised platform comes in, but everything else remains the same. Third stage is very, very important, wherein you have the concept of raised platform, but the shikhar comes in. Fourth and fifth stage is when you have the rectangular Garbhagrihas and the circular Garbhagriha. So these are very standard things which you should know basically. Now, when you understand this, we can move to Nagara style. See, Nagara style is specific to North India. North Indian temples generally follow Nagara style, and Nagara style is quite diverse and has a lot of subcategories also. I'll use a word called Panchyatan, and just to explain to you what that means is that, see, if you look at the aerial view of any temple generally, you will realize that there is a main Garbhagriha with the Shikhar. This is one deity. Now, if there's only one deity, it is not called Panchyatan. As soon as you have multiple deities, more than one, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4. Not 1, but 2, 3, 4, and 5. More than 1. More than 1 means Panchyatan. There is no concept that because Panch means 5, it has to be 5. No. Panchyatan, more than 1. They could be separated, and there can also be a model in which you have one Garbhagriha and then all Garbhagriha's attached or very close to the one. This is called clusterization. This is called non-clusterization. Clusterization means they have been brought together. This means non-clusterization. Now, I've used the term, I'm again repeating myself, Garbhagriha, Shikhar, Amlaka, Kalash, Mandap, Ardhamandap, and thereafter I've told you what does Panchyatan mean. Now we are capable of understanding what does a Nagara style temple look like and what are the basic features. Once we understand this, we can move to Ayodhya. Now I'll try to give you a 3D rendering here so that you have a better understanding of how this temple basically looks like. This is your Garbhagriha. This is your Garbhagriha. Garbhagriha will always have a Shikhar over it. The Shikhar, it could be curvilinear, inward, outward, Latina, Famsana, we'll discuss that. And thereafter, it will be topped by an Amlak, and the Amlak will be topped by a Kalash. Kalash is a symbol of auspiciousness, and that is why it is added like that. Thereafter, you will have a congregation hall in front of the Garbhagriha, and this can be divided into two parts. I'll change the color so that you understand it better. There is this first part, which basically we call as Ardhamandap, and this is the other part which we call as Mandapa. This is the congregation hall. Over and above this, this whole complex will most probably be on a very high platform, and that high platform is called a very specific thing when it comes to Nagara, which is called Pitha. So what I've done is that I have turned this whole system and turned it like this to make it a 3D render. So I'll mark the basic elements so that you understand it. You have Garbh Griha, which has the deity. You have the Shikhara. Then you have the Amlaka. Then you have the Kalash. Then we have already marked the Mandap. This is called the Ardha Mandapa. And over and above that, now we have a word for this. In a lot of books, it would say, for example, Jagati. But the word which we use and the NCERT also uses is Pitha. Jagati is a very specific word for Vesara style, which I'll tell you when I'll be talking about the Ayodhya Ram Temple. But Pitha is basically the raised platform on which there will be there. You would have seen this. There would be stairs through which you will enter into this temple. Quite well understood and represented in different types of movies and in soap operas, wherein there will be a moment in which the hero's mother is going to go down the stairs into the street and she'll be hit by a car or something. That is basically a Nagara style temple, because in the process of telling you that, and why am I telling you? Because mostly we have a certain image of a temple in our mind. We first need to remember the first, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth, seventh. These 7 elements more or less you already know, but the reason why the stairs straight away go into the street is because in Nagara style, the 8th point, very, very important, is that there is no boundary wall. There is no boundary wall, and more than that, there is no entry gate. So unlike a Gopuram in Dravida style, there's no boundary wall, there's no entry gate in a Nagara style temple. Further, we have what is called as Panchayatan with clusterization of Shikar. Panchayatan with clusterization means that basically you would have seen this again in your lifetime for sure. If you go to a temple complex, you would have these temple shikhars grouped together with each other. This is basically called clusterization. They have been clustered together. That is why it's called clusterization. 1, 2, 3. In Nagara style, the main deity will always be under the tallest shikhar, unlike Dravida, where it is under the smallest vimana. Now, the last interesting element about Nagara is that you will always have imagery which is quite welcoming, which is you will have Ganga, Yamuna represented in sculptural form, or you would have certain representations which are quite welcoming, again contrasting with Dravida, where you have Dwarpals and which represents a certain type of fierceness or fear or power, which is not there in the Nagara style. Now these are the basic elements of Nagara. Under Nagara, there is further categorization also. We can understand that in the context of basically understanding them according to Shikhar. According to Shikhara, we have 3 types, which is called Latina, Famsana, and you have Valabhi. The difference being Latina is basically when the Shikhar is very, very sharply coming together. When it is parallel to each other and it comes very sharply, it is curvilinear. You can basically call it convex. Basically, it is inward, so it is convex. Famsana is the opposite of Latina, wherein you have a little bit of stepped, much broader base in that sense, and the curve is a little bit outwards. Valabhi is, on the other hand, when the concept of vaulted chamber comes in. These are basically vaulted chambers, or when the base of the Shikhar is rectangular, it becomes a vaulted chamber based understanding and vaulted chamber based Shikhar. These are the 3, according to Shikhar, 3. Thereafter, according to region also, we have 3 divisions. One is called Odisha, the second one is called Khajuraho, and the last one is called Solanki. Now, under Odisha, we have the terminology is changing. Rekhadyul and Jagmohan for Shikar and Mandap, and the boundary wall comes in. Khajuraho is the best example of Nagara, except for the thematic, which is a little bit erotic, coming out of the Kama Sutra of Vatasana. And thereafter, Solanki is the one which basically follows everything, but has too many exceptions, which is it has a boundary wall also, it has an entry gate also, which is called Torana, and thereafter it also has what are called water tanks. And this is a point which we can add, which is that with no boundary wall and no entry gate, there is no water tank also in the concept of Nagara. Whilst in Solanki, that is a exception, because you have stepped wells, which are quite common in the Gujarat sector, specifically in Solanki architecture and Solanki school of Nagara in that regard. Now, I hope that you understand the basics of Nagara and temple. If you know me, you would know that I repeat quite a lot of times, I revise with you, and every session will have one teaching, and thereafter I will try to make sure that we can also revise in the same session. So I've taught you, now let's revise. Before I move to the third part of this discussion, first is the basic elements: Garbhagriha, Shikhar, Amlaka, Kalash, Mandap, Ardhamandap, and a platform. Then Panchayatan being the concept of more than one deity, more than one Garbhagriha. Thereafter, I told you how a Nagara style temple looks like, which is basically a Shikhar, Amlak, Kalash, the concept of Garbhagriha, the Pitha, Mandapa, Ardhamandapa, and a entry gate going into it, which is basically the Ardhamandap is basically the entry into the temple itself. That's why Ardha means half, Ardhamandap. There will be no water tank, there will be no boundary wall, there will be no entry gate. Panchayatan, entry gate, not this. What I mean by that is no Gopuram-like structure. Thereafter, Panchayatan with clusterization, with the deity under the tallest, and thereafter the imagery is quite welcoming generally. With that, I also told you Shikhar and the region. With Shikhar, Nagara goes into schools. Schools means when there is a little bit of deviation. Latina, Famsana, Valabhi, and thereafter Odisha, Khajuraho, and Solanki. So you can see we can basically divide it into different categories, and the Odisha can use either three, the Khajuraho can use either three, and Solanki can use either three. There is no D-bar in using or cross-cutting each other. Now, with this, I hope your understanding is totally clear, and we can move to this very, very magnificent holy image of the Ram temple getting what we call as Pran Pratishtha on 22nd January, a very, very important moment in our temple history. It has its own politics and a long journey we have come through. If we go back, it is a journey of close to 5 centuries, 500 years, and thereafter we get this temple in Ayodhya on the Ram Janmbhumi, the birthplace of Lord Rama, and therefore that is why the deity installed in the Garbhagriha is also the infant form of Lord Rama. We don't have to go into that, we rather have to understand this structure and what are the nuances and what are the things which are relevant for the examination. Now, if you understand that, let's look at the whole structure, because as of right now, only this part has been constructed and the whole temple complex is coming about. So let's try to understand. See, everybody says that this is Nagara style. It is Nagara style. It has its basic features such as the Shikhar, it has its Amlaka, it has its Kalash. We have the Ardha Mandap here, we have the Mandapa here. It has actually 5 Mandaps. But let me change the color of the pen so that it is more visible to you. See, this becomes the Ardha Mandap. You can't see that also. Okay, black color. This is the Ardha Mandap. Thereafter, you have the Mandapa, and then you have the main Shikhara, and this part is the platform. However, I'll go a little bit back. See, you have the platform, Pitha, the Mandaps, 3 Mandaps are there, but this Mandap is not going to be called a Mandap, but an Ardha Mandap. Then you have the Garbhagriha here, the Pradakshin Path to go around it, and the Shikhar, Kalash, and the Dhwaja has now been added. Kalash and Amlaka are there. Now, if you are a keen observer of architecture, and if you have an understanding of architecture, you will realize something, that this temple, though is Nagara style, and this is a very unique point I want to make for you, maybe not made anywhere else, is that it has a lot of elements of Vesara also. Because see, the temple has all the basic features totally, which is Ardh Mandap, the concept of Shikar, Amlaka, Kalash. It's a very high, 161 feet high complex itself. But if you look at this design, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this whole design which you see here, this is very specific to Vesara style coming out of the Hoysaleshwara temples or the Hoysala temples. Basically, it has taken two major elements out of it, which is called the zigzag design. Over and above that, the word pitha is not used because the platform is not too big. It is basically like a jagati. Just to give you reference, I'll show you the Hoysaleshwara temple complex itself. You can see that the same type of zigzagging is here also. You can see that. And therefore, though people talk about Nagara, it has two elements out of it. This, though Vesara basically is a hybrid style, has Nagara plus Dravida in it, but this is a Nagara with a Vesara element in it. This zigzagging is what we can see in that also. And if you look at the aerial image, the basic structure, how it has been created, is also very reminiscent of Vesara Hoysaleshwara temple. That is why this temple is quite unique, because it has Nagara style basic architecture, but has also taken 2 to 3 points out of the Vesara style, wherein you can see that you have the Jagati, but the Jagati word is Vesara. Remember, Jagati word is always used in Vesara, not in Nagara. Nagara, it is called Pitha. And that is why we are saying it is called Jagati, because it's a small platform, not a very raised platform. Raised platform, very high platforms are known as Pithas. So therefore, can we agree with everybody saying that it is Nagara? Yes, we can. It is Nagara, Ardh Mandap, Shikhar, Amlak, Kalash. It is having clusterization also, but there is no multiple deities. It has basically the concept of clusterization of mandaps, but the deities, the Panchayatan design, the deities have been pushed to the corners of the temple. As you can see, there's only one Shikhar here. It is Panchayatan design, but the other Garbhagrihyas have been moved to the corner. There is cluster, but there is clusterization of mandap, smaller shikhars, not the main Garbhagriha. So though it is Panchayatan, but it is not Panchayatan with clusterization in the way we know it. It is Panchayatan in the traditional way it is done, as it is done in Khajuraho school, which is the main Garbhagriha in the center and the four corners having the different Garbhagrihyas in that regard. Now, more than that, we have agreed it is Nagara. Sure. Panchayatan is there. There is no water tank. Entry gate you need because it's a modern temple. Thereafter, the concept of Garbhagriha, Amlaka, Kalash, everything is there. But what we have established through this session, through our interaction, is that it has two elements coming out of Hoysaleshwara temples or the Hoysala temples or the Vesara style, which is the zigzag design, which is basically very specific to the concept of Hoysaleshwara temples, Vesara style, and the platform is not very high, and it is very, very close to and looks very close to how the Jagati looks in the Vesara style, which I already showed you here. So I hope that you can establish this. It does not change the fundamental style of the architecture, but it adds a little bit of more elements and interesting aspects in that regard. Other than that, I have certain other images to show you, which basically give you the cost of it, which is close to 1800 crores. That is immaterial here. The point is, it is on 70 acres. It has a very interesting feature that out of the 100% land on which it has been made, the temple only occupies 30%. 70% of the land has been left free, which is a very good green initiative in that regard. Thereafter, you don't have to learn these 3 floors, 12 gates, 44 doors. That is not of any importance to a UPSC aspirant. The more important aspect would be to understand its basic features. In the Sanctum Sanctorum or the Garbhagriha, we will have the statues of Ram, Sita, Lakshman and Lord Hanumana. Along with that, it is expecting, and there is already 2 to 3 lakhs people every day. They are basically going and worshipping Lord Rama right now. But the point is, straight on, looking at with me in this way, you can understand that it is Nagara, which is Ardhamandap, Mandap, Shikar, Amlak, Kalash, Dhwaj, which is a new element. Then you have the Jagati, which you can see here. Over and above that, this is where, if you are a keen observer, if you are a very serious aspirant, you will understand this zigzag designing is something which has been not taken from any other Nagara style, but from Vesara temple style, which got the UNESCO tangible heritage tag also last year with Shanti Niketan, which is the Hoysaleshwara sacred assemblage in Belur and in Helibet. Now, we have understood the architecture. Before I go into the salient features where I want to tell you what are the resources, where has it come from, I want to again revise with you, because that ways we learn as we go on. Now, what have we established till this point? We have established that we have discussed what is Nagara style. I hope you understand that. I have discussed the regional variation, and I have also discussed the Shikara variation with regards to Nagara. I have discussed these two things with you. I have also established in the architectural analysis, that was the primary goal of this whole session. I have also established to you that we have 3 basic things. Is the Ayodhya temple Nagara style? Yes. Yes, it is. It is totally Nagara style. It is totally Nagara style. Thereafter, the question is, does it have any other element of any other type of temple development? And the answer to that question is again yes. Why yes? Because of the fact that you have the Jagati and you have the zig-zag design concept having been taken. Zigzag design concept which has also been taken. Thereafter, now there are smaller points which you need to know, because you would be expected to know them for the prelims examination. Till this point, it's a more mains-oriented understanding where you are capable of giving the basic features. And remember, Nagara style with the 2 very interesting. This is a very important point. Nobody talks about this. Nobody is talking about it. Nobody wants to talk about it because they either lack the nuance or they're not able to see it. This is a very interesting point which you need to remember generally. Now, let's discuss the other smaller features and very interesting features in that regard. Now, we know that it will have 5 mandaps, and you need to remember the names of these mandaps. Nritya mandap, Rang mandap, Sabha mandap, Prathna mandap, and Kirtan mandap. Remember the names, because this is where the prelims question can be made actually. Thereafter, you also have on the 4 corners, as I showed you, the temple of Surya, Bhagavati, Lord Ganesha, and Lord Shiva, which is already there, and therefore it becomes a Panchayatan design. So this confirms to us that it is Panchayatan. Thereafter, there are different sculptures which have been made in the northern and the southern arm of the wing with different important personalities related to Hindu mythology, related to the bhakti of Lord Rama, and generally important personalities within Hinduism. Now, what I want to actually discuss with you is these 2 points. See, first is that when the temple was taken up for construction, it was seen that there's no basic base on which it could be made. So you need a foundation, but the foundation was too sandy. So it has too much sand, and therefore this temple would become too unstable and non-earthquake resistant. And therefore, Larsen & Toubro, L&T, which basically is constructing this temple, what they did was that they created or brought in sand from or soil from other areas, created an artificial foundation with the concrete on which this temple is there. But what is more interesting is throughout the whole temple, every wing of it, everything, there is no use of iron or iron sariyas as we call it. There are 2 reasons for that. first, the life of an iron-based column or an iron-based temple is very short, maximum 100 years. The temple has been made with at least a millennium, close to 1000 years in perspective, and therefore no form of iron has been used, and therefore the joints are basically old style Gupta period lock and key concept. So granite was brought in, it was cut, and in a trabeted structure they were brought in a certain way that they lock with each other in that regard. Further, more than that, within Hinduistic practices, iron and leather, specifically iron leather, both these two things are generally not allowed within temples. If you've been to a temple, they will make you remove your belt because it is believed that it has both the elements, which is some form of iron and leather. And in a way, it is very sacrosanct and very interesting that the iron concept is both important for the construction and the ritualistic aspect of it. So there is no use of cement. It is all lock and key coming together, a pure tribated structure, how it was made previously. Thereafter, it is not that it does not have any new elements, or it does not have, it's not a modern temple. It is a modern temple. It will have rafts, it will have lifts for the people who cannot, for the Divyangjan in that regard. And further, for environmental reasons, 30% of the land area has been used. 70% of the 70 acres has been left green, which is, it will have all forms of different aspects of greenery, and it also has different plants within it, so that basically sewage plant and water treatment plant, so it is self-sufficient in itself. Now, for prelims, again, something very important is resources. Where have they come from? So you have the Makran marble and the pink sandstone from Rajasthan, the granite from Tamil Nadu and Telangana, and the colored marble from Mandla in Madhya Pradesh. Very, very important. These are points which you should remember generally. Further, the pink sandstone, close to 4.7 lakh, you don't have to remember that, is coming from Bharatpur district of Rajasthan, and more or less the best quality granite, be it sandstone or be marble, has been used, so that the life of the temple is quite long and non-problematic over a period of time. Now, the temple complex has also been developed with collaboration from one of the leading institutes in India for what we call as geology, for rock mechanics, for geological research, and NIT and IIT Delhi, Guwahati, Chennai and Bombay have come together to develop the sewage plant, the water plant, and independent fire service and power station in that regard. That way it is also very, very modern in that regard. So before I end this session, what I want to do is I want to bring everything together so that we understand it in the right way, and we can then move on to tomorrow's session, which will be about the Maratha military complex. Quite important that way. The first thing is, this analysis was a pure architectural analysis, where we tried to understand that basically it is a Nagara style temple. I explained to you the static. That was my privilege to tell you the static along with the current affairs. So we discussed Nagara, we discussed the basic elements, and we also discussed the aspects of different divisions. Maybe in a later session, I will get the chance to teach you Dravida also. I will do that. Vesara, I've already told you, is hybrid, both Nagara Dravida coming together. Central India, quite common in northern Karnataka and Maharashtra sector, which is the Vesara style. So Nagara, basic, and the two features. Then we were able to establish Ayodhya Ram Temple. We have Nagara style, yes. Does it have any other element? Yes, it has two. Jagati, zigzag design. Further, we have also established that the use of iron has not been done so as to make sure that the life of the temple increases, and it is also related to the ritualistic practices within Hinduism so as to keep iron and these type of metals outside the temple. And more than that, the resources have come from different parts of India, in turn making this temple a symbol of unity in diversity, bringing India together in that regard. This has been a very, very important moment in our temple architecture history. It has been a long struggle which we have won, and more than that, it is a very important temple as for how temples are being built today. So with this, I would like to end this session. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope that this is a beginning of a much longer and much constructive journey with you generally. I hope that you are finding our initiatives also very, very useful. If you are, do like, share and subscribe to the channel. I will see you tomorrow with another set of issues. But I hope that this series, which is our past, which will be done by me, is going to constructively contribute. Be it YouTube, be it our Plus course on the Unacademy app also. I will be teaching history, be it ancient, medieval, modern, world history, be it anything, it will be me only. I'll be covering all of history, and I hope that you can gain something from this journey with me on YouTube or our app. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next session. Take care. Bye-bye.